Hello everybody, my name is Maya and today we are going to be doing my US history project. Yes, I know. The pinnacle of content on YouTube. But first, I would like to thank my US history teacher, Mr. Deere, for giving me the opportunity to talk about history in my own special Maya way. Okay, so today we're going to be answering the essential question of how did the experiences of Black Americans differ from the experiences of wealthy white men during the Gilded Age? And I'm going to be answering this question by focusing on voter suppression during this time. Following the ratification of the 15th Amendment, which gave Black Americans the right to vote, Southern states quickly found ways of intimidation to keep African Americans from the polls. A poll tax is a tax that one has to pay in order to vote. They also had to be paid in cash, which was very difficult for sharecroppers because, as you know, sharecroppers only were paid in crops and other goods, not actual money. A lot of Southern legislators claimed that these taxes were to raise state revenue, but in reality they were to, obviously, suppress the African American vote. In Georgia, Black voter turnout went down 50% after their implementation of poll taxes. Another common tactic that white Americans used to keep the Black vote out is literacy tests. Literacy tests were tests that people had to pass as a qualification for voting in federal elections. For white people, the test would have very simple questions, but for Black people, it could range from specific and otherwise not well-known questions like print the word vote upside down, but in the right order, or if a person is convicted of a crime, name two rights which he has. When talking about literacy tests, you have to take into account the large gap of funding between white and Black schools at the time, and even so now. A grandfather clause is a clause that allows any adult whose grandfather voted prior to abolition to waive the tax and be able to vote. As all Black people before that point weren't even citizens, the clause really did nothing to help them. Like, the grandfather clause, all of these Black people who are trying to vote, their grandfathers didn't even get the right to vote. You know what I'm saying? So, they could not be able to vote prior to abolition because they weren't even considered human at that time. So, yeah. Voting right activists in the South were subjected to various forms of mistreatment and violence. In more general instances, many were whipped and lynched and had their crops and houses burnt down. So you're probably thinking, Maya, this is great and all this information is amazing, and this will sure land you an A on this project, but what does that have to do with us today? And to that I say, well, thank you. But it's very important to know the history of our country and how something that some people may take for granted now was something that was so out of reach for other people. The fight against voter suppression led to the rise of the civil rights movements in the 1950s and 60s. People did things such as nonviolent resistance and, of course, voter registration efforts were both efforts in order to increase the Black vote. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 outlawed most discriminatory voting practices in Southern states, such as literacy tests, poll taxes, and grandfather clauses that had been designed by Southern legislators to suppress the African American vote. Voter suppression still continues to this day, even under new lenses, like conveniently putting polling locations in hard-to-access places, or gerrymandering. Knowing the full history and how it impacts today's society is very important when learning and discussing the history. That's all I got for my Unit 6 Gilded Age project. Thank you so much for listening to my little history lesson, and thank you, Mr. Deere, for giving me the opportunity to talk about history in my own fun little way. I will see y'all in the next one, and I will see you, Mr. Deere, in 3B US History in the afternoon. This is Maya, signing off.